All right, guys, here with us today is an actress from one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid, Ernest Scared Stupid. She's also made an appearance in some of your favorite television shows, including Third Rock from the Sun, Star Trek The Next Generation, and The Lost. That's right, we're talking about Shay Astar. How are you today, Shay?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for allowing me to interview you. This is one of the interviews I've been looking forward to the most. And
Aw.
yeah, well, Ernest Scared Stupid was one we watched multiple times a year. And so
Oh, nice.
I got like this nostalgia thing going on that I'm really excited to kind of delve into. So
That is a movie that every year I get a lot of people reaching out about. It's one of those movies that had a significant impact on a lot of kids, and people just have a really, like you say, a real nostalgia for it. So it's really nice to be able to be a part of something that meant something to a lot of people when they were kids.
absolutely. And it's not really something that you can know at the time either. Like you're an young
No,
actress working with Jim Varney, and it's just like all of a sudden this movie, 20 years later is still
at
really
least.
at least 20 years later.
No, it's more like 30 years ago. It's closer
Yeah.
to 30 years ago. I think this is the like 30-year anniversary or something,
Wow. So I got
something
you
like
on the
that.
30-year anniversary. That's awesome.
I think this year is the
Yeah.
30th anniversary.
Very, very cool. Very cool. Awesome. So we're going to jump right into the questions.
Great.
You were around 8 or 9 when you starred in the short film The Clean Club. Who or what got you into acting?
Um, well, my family had moved to Los Angeles from the Bay Area, and just my mother was working in entertainment, not as a performer at that time, but just working for a film company, and happened to meet randomly meet a children's agent who, I'm not sure if she saw pictures of me and my older brother, but we went to meet with her and she wanted to take us on. It was a very simple, straightforward process. We met with an agent, she took us on and started sending us on auditions. And uh, and my brother was not excited about it and wanted to stay home and play with his friends and have a normal life, and I just loved it so much. So I was thrilled to go on every audition, and even more thrilled when I got my first job.
That's awesome. So you did you ever have that like that super nervous, I don't know what I'm doing when you're getting into an audition, or was it pretty natural for you?
Well, I had started training. I say training, even though I was 3 when I started taking ballet class. And for whatever reason, I took ballet very, very seriously. And I considered myself, a ballerina in training. And when I started acting, I had the same intensity and professionalism involved with it. So it was always very serious work to me. And even more wonderful was that I loved it so much. Like, I was so excited to be at my very first audition that I could barely read my lines. It was so thrilling. I felt like I was at home instantly.
So you were made to do this. This was your calling.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's very, very cool. It's I I listen to a lot of interviews and read a lot of interviews, and some actors and actresses have this very like um casual approach to it. They're like, if they want me, they want me. If they don't, they don't. And it's awesome to hear that you have such a professional, driven approach to making this work for you, and it's inspiring.
Well, there's a lot of artists and actors and writers and performers in my family on both sides. So I really just think it's in the blood. And but at the same time, I mean, as a child, a lot of kids who start acting do it because their parents want them to. And it also happens to be that a lot of young actors are, either get involved because they have connections, and it's, why wouldn't you? Or they're just so extraordinarily beautiful. It's almost like model scouting. And when people kind of fall into their careers that way, I think they can be incredibly successful and incredibly good at it. But it's very different than somebody who wants it and knows they want it and can ride the waves of success and not success.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And that's with a lot of other things as well. Like take high school sports, for example. You know, there
Mm,
might be a very tall young person and they kind of get, oh, I'm tall, I'm probably gonna be good at basketball or
hmm.
volleyball. But, you know, it's the athlete that shows up to practice and gives 110%. That's going to be the star of the team. The tall guy might do very well, but you know, like you said, having that driven approach is, I think, is better than having this kind of falling into that position.
Well, I don't know if it ultimately has that much bearing on success. Certainly, natural talent is meaningful both in sports and in entertainment. Um, but it's not always the most talented actors or the most talented musicians who become the most successful. Um, that being said, it's very easy to look at all of the big stars and understand they're there for a reason. But I think that the drive and the real love for the craft makes it a much more fulfilling endeavor for the artist themselves. If you're there because you really, really need to be there and that's what you want to do with your life, then that is a fulfilling process from start to finish rather than falling into something that you happen to be good at, but you don't really know if that's what you deeply want. I've known a lot of people, successful people, who've gone through that. And it's a very, very difficult thing to give up. If you're a very successful actor, then you're making a lot of money, you've got fame, you've got everything that you could ever want in life. And yet it's hard to give it up. It's hard to give it up.
Yeah, and then that kind of harkens back to what my whole podcast is about, is finding uh people who were very much in love, or still are very much in love with the acting, but or music or what have you, but
Mm-hmm.
they have these other passions. Like I just recently learned that Seth Rogen's getting into pottery, which is
Wow.
something
Yeah.
very cool. It's cool to sometimes we view celebrities as these like untouchable, like, you know, almost like gods. There's people that even, idolize and worship actors and actresses. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we get to see that, their passions outside of acting, like, um, pottery and what have you, it's really cool. And you can look at them more as like as a person instead of just an image on a screen, pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
So moving on a little bit, it wasn't long before you jumped into doing television series. Do you recall a particular set or director that you really enjoyed working with?
Well, I've always been incredibly lucky that I've worked with amazingly talented writers and actors and directors. Um, I did a series in the 90s, 93, 94, something like that, called The Good Life, it was the first series that Drew Carey did before his
Oh,
show. And the director of the pilot was a director called John Rich. And John Rich was like an old school TV director. Um, and had directed all those like famous TV shows in the 50s or like the 60s. And he was so particular about what he was looking for that one day when I couldn't get a line right, he followed me off the set to the commissary where there's like lunch counters and everything, where I was about to have lunch. I mean, I was 12 years old or something at the time. And he followed me to lunch and stopped me and was like, "What's happening? This line, it's not working." And we stood there in line at the commissary with our lunch trays, like working out this moment. And I always remember that because, in the grand scheme of things, the line wasn't so significantly important, but he knew that it could be perfect. And he was right. And we got it right. And it got a huge laugh on the day. And I always remember that in terms of, you know, it's not really about being a perfectionist. It's about being tenacious and going after what you know you can get. So it was a great lesson for me, not only as an actor, but just as an artist in general, of really going after the vision and executing the vision.
I love that. I love that. It's inspiring. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Um, so Ernest Scared Stupid was such a silly but strangely horrifying movie, and of course, it featured the late Jim Varney. Do you remember?
Yeah.
What do you remember most about working on that set?
Well, I mean, I've said this in interviews a lot, but Jim Varney was an incredibly intelligent man. And, not only you have to be intelligent to be, that level of comedic genius, but he was also just incredibly well educated and knew so much about so much, and would sit. My father was with me on the set where we shot that in Nashville, and he and my dad would sit and talk about just like all this, I mean, astrophysics and, the structure of the Earth's crust, and just I wasn't shocked, but it's certainly not something that people think about when they first think about Jim Varney, is that he was actually like an intellectually brilliant guy.
I totally believe that. And like you said, you have to have that level of intelligence to portray this silly, fun,
You really
goofy
do.
character.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. I wish I would have got to meet him. I'm incredibly jealous.
He was a special man.
We had all of the movies. I couldn't name you all of them, but there's like Ernest Goes to Jail, Ernest Scared Stupid.
Yeah.
We as kids we grew up with Jim Varney as like a household name for us. So very cool. So you might be interested to know that the bed scene in that movie traumatized my wife as a child, and apparently and apparently she's not alone. Has anyone else told you that that movie has scared them?
Many people have told me that movie and that scene in particular um, was a big moment in their childhoods. Yes, every time I think every interview that I've done about this movie, someone has mentioned just how terrifying that moment was for them. So yes, the answer to that is it was a traumatizing moment for many young people. I apologize to your wife.
When we were talking about it, um, we were talking about horror movies that scared us as a kid and how it might have crafted our love for horror and,
Mm.
thrillers and scary movies in general. Um, and she couldn't remember the name of the movie or anything. She could only remember that scene. She's like, there was a little girl in bed and she turned over and there was this three nose, like disgusting looking ogre troll thing in bed with her. And it scared me so bad. I had to sleep for like a month with the lights on. And I'm like, we're trying to, I'm like, the little girl in the bed. And I go, wait, Ernest Scared Stupid? That's a comedy movie. And it was just such a funny moment.
Well, I will tell you actually, I won't say who it is just for people's privacy, but a very famous director explained to me once how well that scene is shot and what a good job the filmmakers did in creating those moments of suspense and just so I think that they would be very happy to hear that it had such an effect on your wife and on so many other kids, that it was great. Directors agree that that scene was terrifying.
I don't think it scared me quite as much. I was a little bit older than she was when I first watched it. Um, but yeah, it is like in the context of like a comedy movie, it's probably the
Hmm.
scariest scene in the whole movie.
Oh yeah, I would say I would have to agree with you.
So your most prolific TV series role was in Third Rock from the Sun, where you played August. Can you speak to that role and what it meant for your acting career?
Well, that was a role where I got the sides, which are sides are just pages from the script that they send to actors so you can audition with them. I got the sides and I was like, this is my part. It was so me, it felt, and it's very rare for me to read a script where I feel seen. I felt like someone knows me and wrote this character. So it was just one of those beautiful moments where immediately upon reading it, I was like, this is perfect for me. And it was, I mean, that was an extraordinary group of people, from all those incredible actors to the writing team to the directors that worked on that show. I mean, you know, the writing and producing team, it was a ton of people from Saturday Night Live. So these are masters of comedy, and working in that environment and with actors like Jane Curtin and John Lithgow, these are people at the top of their craft. So being around that was, you know, I knew we were making something special, just because of the caliber of the people that I was with, and watching those artists work every day was an incredible education that to this day, I feel like I still learn from remembering some of that experience, and the way that the writers would come in with a new idea while we were filming and hand it to one of the actors who would then take it and create this beautiful new moment from it. It was an extraordinary experience for sure.
That's really awesome. I loved that show growing up. I watched it
It's a
all the
great
time.
show. Great show.
So you were opposite. This isn't in the question list, but you were opposite to Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Have you
Mm-hmm.
in any way stayed in touch with him or anything like that throughout the
I mean,
years?
in vaguely, like we definitely are not like, so what's up this weekend, man, at all. But
Yeah.
yes, we've stayed in touch.
Yeah. He's a phenomenal actor himself. So
Yes, he is.
a
Yes,
very
he
good
is.
a very good opposite for you to act with.
I felt like I felt very lucky to be able to work with those people. And yeah, he's an extraordinary actor.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. 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 So could you tell us about working on All Cheerleaders Die?
Yeah, I mean, so the writers and directors of All Cheerleaders Die are Lucky McKee and Chris Sievertson. Chris Sievertson directed this movie, The Lost, that I did, you know, a number of years ago, and Lucky produced it. That was an amazing experience. I loved working with those guys. They're just incredible filmmakers and wonderful, wonderful people. So All Cheerleaders Die was really a movie that they, and some of the other actors that were in The Lost are in that movie as well. But anyway, they just called me to do a role in it, and licensed one of my songs for the movie as well. So there's a song in the
Very
movie.
cool. Very cool. Yeah, I definitely spent some time checking out your YouTube channel and listening to your music, and it's very good. I
Thank
very
you.
much like it.
Thank you.
There's one where you're playing live in like it looks like maybe a I couldn't tell, maybe a bar or a bookstore. I couldn't really tell from the
Hmm.
background, but yeah, it's a really touching style. I really like it. It's very
Thank
cool.
you.
I'll
Thank
put
you.
it, and for anybody listening, I'll put a link in the description of the podcast so that you guys can check out Shay's music as well. So, Land of Wandering is a short that you wrote for. Could you tell us, or could you let us in on this process that you go through when you're writing something like this?
Yeah, Land of Wandering was a very special project. I had worked with a director, an artist and director called Sarah Louise Wilson. I'd done a short film with her, and I just thought she was such a genius. Um, and she offered to do, you know, a music video for me. And then as we started talking about a music video, this idea of doing this whole film, and you know, taking a play out of like the song remains the same kind of music films, where each song has its own, you know, story, or at least some kind of narrative vignette. We really collaborated so beautifully on putting that project together. And we recorded the EP, this like live 5-song EP, in my apartment, and then shot these stories to go with it. And so doing that with, I mean, literally Sarah and I would get together and just talk through it, you know, how everything was going to work. And it was really letting the songs inform the story, and really just trying to visualize the songs, not in, you know, this perfectly obvious way, because some of the songs were very particular storylines, and then we weren't going to exactly act them out. But being able to bring those visually out was really an incredible process. And then we also did a live show at the Art Share in downtown LA that was amazing, again, with dancers and, you know, and like narrative pieces, and then the band playing live. And it was just, that was such an incredibly fulfilling artistic experience to make that film and record that music and perform those songs. It was a wonderful, wonderful time. The band's there in the house and we're recording live and, you know, filming these crazy things. And, you know, I had a lot of help and a lot of friends come in and, you know, participate. And it was just so great.
That's awesome. So that's one of those memories you'll cherish forever and ever, I'm
Oh
sure.
yeah, for sure. For sure.
Very cool. And stemming off that, have many people approached you and from that perspective and saying, hey, you know, we'd like you to help us write, or we'd like to use some of your music? Is that stemmed from off of that very much?
Yeah, I've done a lot of in recent years since I had my child, and I haven't been, and also we're in a pandemic and just haven't been performing. I've done a lot more writing. I wrote and directed a short film that is not finished. It still needs to be edited and scored, but I have definitely, since doing Land of Wandering, branched out into creating more of my own content instead of just being hired. So that's, yeah, it's been a big change. And I've done, you know, I've worked with people on soundtrack, and I've done like music consulting for people's films. And I've done a lot of, I've always uh, done a lot of like writing help for other songwriters and like helped people write songs, um, and you know, worked with writers for sure. But at the moment, because I have been kind of limited in my work because I'm, you know, taking care of my little kid and pandemic, and it's I've been focused on my own projects.
Awesome. Awesome. Very cool. It's like, um, I feel like writing can be such a constructive outlet as well, to write and get your thoughts and ideas and even your ambitions out on paper and into um, you know, different forms of media and content. So I'm
Well,
excited. Go ahead.
I've always considered myself a writer. I wasn't doing it professionally until I started writing songs. But I didn't see that as being a different thing than writing a script, or, you know, it's still a very specific creative process. So I've always been writing. I've been writing for many years, and it's just in recent years that it's moved a little bit out of just songwriting and into more like screenwriting and writing for stage and like writing, you know, for Land of Wandering and the live show, and, you know, creating more content.
Awesome. Well, I was going to say I'm very excited to see your short film whenever it's made available to the public. I'd
Thank
be
you.
very much interested in that.
Thank you.
And if it's out by the time this podcast is out, or even after, I can retroactively put the link in the description for anybody who wants to check it out as
I
well.
will definitely send it to you when it's ready. I would hope it'll it'll come out this year. It really just depends on childcare and school and what happens with, if things are, you know, open again.
Get it? I have a 4-year-old, and just to
Oh
record
yeah.
this, just to record this interview, my wife brought him to the playground to play for a couple hours so we could talk, because
Oh yeah.
he's too wild to be in here.
I get it. Mine's two.
Yeah, yeah. I loved 2. Everyone says that's the terrible 2s, but it's the 3-nagers that
No.
got me.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Well, no, two's been so much fun, and he's so adorable and so funny and interesting and so sweet. So we'll
awesome.
see.
I
We'll see
love
what
it.
happens.
I love it. Did you? And this is off the script. I'm so sorry, but like so many people, including myself and my wife, fell into being a parent so easily and so naturally. Was that easy for you, or was it something that you kind of had to work at and learn about?
You know, it was, I was ready. I was very ready to have my kid. But I was surprised that it changed me so much. Just, physically, emotionally, I was expecting to work throughout my whole pregnancy and maintain the same level of discipline and productivity, which was impossible. I expected to have an easy pregnancy, which I had a healthy pregnancy. I had an uncomplicated pregnancy, but I was exhausted and sick and felt like my brain had just shut off. And that was really difficult because I had a lot of trouble focusing and being productive. And when you're trying to create original content, it's not like I've got a list of things that someone else is expecting me to do. It all had to be self-generated. And that was incredibly challenging. And then I certainly expected that after my son was born, that, I'd take a couple weeks off and then get right back to it. And that is not what happened. So it was a big change and a big transition for me because my life was 100% focused on my work. And I expected that to a large degree would continue. And it did not. It completely changed, the amount of work I was able to do and my availability to my work because, you have a tiny child and you just can't work full time. I mean, I, could have put him in daycare and worked full time, but that wasn't the choice that we made. So it was a big change for me. Yeah, it was a big change.
Definitely, definitely. Going back to when you said that your brain just shut off,
Oh, it
um,
did. Yeah.
I remember a moment during my wife's pregnancy. We must have been 7 months in, so she was getting up there and getting close to having our son,
Mhm.
and we wanted to go to the store. And we searched the whole house for the keys. We could not find them. We
Yeah.
checked her purse everywhere, and they were in her hand the whole time.
I sympathize
Yeah.
with your wife. Yeah.
It's that she called it my pregnancy brain. Like, don't judge me
Yes,
today. My pregnancy
it's
brain
true.
is,
It's
yeah,
true. It's true. It's so real. And I just didn't know that was going to happen.
yeah, awesome. Well, and a lot of people, actors and actresses and people found that, you know, having this new love and something that completely give everything, every part of you to, um, can be very profound and influence your writing and your work until a more vulnerable and loving spot. Did you find that that happened at all? Like,
Well, I will say I felt that having a child really brought up a lot of things that I wasn't looking at. And if I can say it a little bit more clearly, I feel like any suppressed emotion, any, latent trauma, even things like, oh, the mean things that kids said to me in school, all that stuff was coming up. And maybe it was because I was so sleep deprived that I had no defenses against my own emotions or no ability to, you know, push it down. So it was like, and I've had lots of therapy and done a lot of that kind of work, but it was very different after having my son, and also that I wanted to be 100% authentic and 100% myself with him. So I didn't want to be hiding. I didn't want to be pretending anything because I know that he can see the truth. And so he can see if I'm pretending and he can see if I'm anxious. And I just became hyper aware of everything that I was doing. And anytime that I, snapped at my husband or anytime I wasn't being honest about how I felt, anytime that I said, no, I'm fine, everything's fine, when it was not fine. And that really kind of threw me into a new self discovery of recognizing I don't want anything to be pushed down anymore. I want to be brave enough to confront whatever it is that's inside me so that I can confront whatever it is that's outside me. And that really set me off on a whole new journey of mental health and self-care, and learning to really take care of myself in a new way and have a respect for myself physically that as an actress was a whole new ball game. You know, you learn to be thin and pretty as an actress, but learning to love your own body and take care of yourself and have some respect is not the Hollywood lesson. I did not get that lesson from Hollywood. I had to learn it, and I had to learn it. So yeah, it was a big change.
Awesome. I think when you use the word bravery when looking into your own emotions, I think you hit the nail. I think you hit the nail right on the head with that. Because it's definitely different from a father's perspective. I didn't carry the child, and but I find that I can be honest with myself more, and I can be more
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable than I have been in the
Mm-hmm.
past. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I hope that, and I'm sure you do too, that translates to our kids, that they can learn to be vulnerable and brave at the same time. So
There's a spiritual leader who said, your children aren't going to listen to anything you say, but they're going to watch everything you do. So
I
I
love
think
that.
that, you know, your ability to be present and really honest with yourself and really vulnerable and just present, just bring your full self and your full involvement to this moment. I think your kids can see that, and that is the best thing I think that I can do for my kid. So that's what I'm always working on.
That's amazing. So moving on a little.
Mm-hmm.
So Ruth, the 2017 short you starred in, is a dark, thoughtful, and emotional. In it, you delivered an incredible monologue. What does the message behind this short mean to you?
Well, you know, I really loved working on that movie. You know, Rose McGowan had written it and was directing it, and she's a really extraordinary artist. And you know, she had a very clear vision for how she wanted to make that film, and it was very easy to see through her eyes what she was going for. And that movie is about a real woman who, uh, you know, found out that these young men were dying of AIDS alone without any love or contact and being disowned by their families. And you know, took she took them on as her own, and she loved them and she buried them. And it's just compassion. It's just a person who saw someone suffering and said, well, I'm here. I can hold your hand. I can help. And I think that's everything.
I
That's the
agree.
most basic lesson of humanity is, we're all one. So this person's suffering is your suffering. And if you can help, you help. That's what my family taught me, and that's what that movie was about. Was just about somebody who was showing compassion.
Yeah, it was. I'm at a loss for words. Yes, that movie or that short was powerful. I probably watched it 10 times between when I asked to interview you and today. It's I'd be lying if I said that it doesn't strike like an emotional chord with me.
Yeah,
The message, your acting, everything was spot on, and I really encourage anybody listening to watch Ruth.
thank
It's
you.
it'll give you goosebumps. I guarantee it the first time you watch it.
Thank you. It was a beautiful experience, and Rose was incredible to work with.
Absolutely, absolutely. She's a really incredible person on her own right as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, she is.
So we did mention your singing and songwriting. What does music let me start over. What role does
Mhm.
performing music play in your life?
Well, I started playing music when I was in my early 20s, and I started because I was not working as much as an actress as I had been, and I was getting bored. and I needed an outlet. And I didn't start playing music thinking that I was going to be a singer-songwriter. I started playing music thinking I was going to become just the most badass guitarist. I was thinking about Jimi Hendrix, and I was thinking about um, Robert Johnson, and I was thinking about the blues, and I was thinking about rock and roll, and I was thinking about Robbie Robertson, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. And so I thought I was gonna go home and start just shredding these sick leads. And instead, what I did is I took a guitar that was in my family and went home and started learning basic chords. Like I went out and bought Guitar for Dummies and learned just basic chords. And within about a week, I'd written a song. And I was like, okay. And then I played that song for some people and they were like, this is great. So I kept doing that. And I found that it was very, very natural. I mean, my mother was a songwriter, so I was not so surprised that it happened, but it it doesn't feel like it occupies that different of a space for me as than acting. They're part of the same universe as far as I'm concerned, from my experience. But the great thing about music is that you can do so much on your own. I don't need anybody to hire me to write songs or to play songs. You can write your own songs, rehearse them with your band, go out and play shows. And I mean, I did that for years and years, just played clubs all over the place and toured and made records. And then I started doing like, taking gigs, doing like backing vocals for people, or like singing, you know, singing on people's, demos that they're sending out. Um, and then I started getting hired to do like cabarets and stuff like that, singing like standards, and it's wonderful. I mean, performing in front of a live audience is so special, because the energy is, it's not just about you on stage, it's about them as well. So and you can feel their excitement or lack thereof. So it's a really immediate, you get the review while you're doing it, while you're on stage. And that part is so fun. And it's just an incredible amount of energy and flowing between you and the audience. And just, it's an incredible experience performing live. I love it. And I'm missing it so much because, streaming a Zoom call with my guitar is not the same as being in a room with people. Um, but yeah, it's just, and also I just think maybe my greatest contribution to music is being a fan. I just love music so much. I love all genres of music. And I'm never going to be a virtuoso. I'm always going to be learning. I'm always going to be at the beginning. And it's so exciting that there are so many people who have taken music to such a level that it's like, it just blows my mind. It's like they're in a different stratosphere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I like that. I like what you said, just your biggest contribution to music is being a fan. I feel the same way. I really love that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to hold on to that. I like that. Um,
I didn't say it first. I believe that came from Keith Richards. I believe that
oh,
that's where I heard that.
Keith Richards. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Going back to what you said about feeling the mood and everything in the room as you're recording. One of my last guests, Brendan Brown from Wheatus, had talked about um a long time ago his band gave up set lists, and what they do is they
Mm-hmm.
let the crowd tell them what they want to hear.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, and I thought that kind of, goes along with what you were saying about reading the room, seeing what they want to hear, because at the end of the day, it's for them. You're having as
Yes.
much fun as they are, but the show is for them. So give them what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. 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 So, moving on a little bit, you grew up in Santa Cruz. Could you shout out any food spots from your youth?
I actually was born in Santa Cruz, but I grew up in the East Bay.
Oh, okay.
So no, I can't, because we moved to Los Angeles when I was 7. So I was not much of a foodie back
Okay.
then.
Okay.
Um,
What about
so
now?
yeah, now I can certainly talk about food in Los Angeles,
Sure.
but
what's
it's
your
endless. There's everything here.
there
Like,
really
what's your
is.
favorite food that you would be like, oh, I want to go to a great this kind of a place?
For me it always comes down to sushi.
Oh, well, I mean, there's it's
You're in the epicenter down in LA.
I mean, there's literally like if you go to, little Tokyo, there's like little hole in the wall sushi places, um, where they're getting their fish from the fish markets, first thing in the morning. I've also had friends go to the fish markets first thing in the morning and then make sushi,
Oh, that
which is
sounds great.
incredible. And then there's like super high level joints where you can go and spend, $3,000 and not even be full. So every single like level of sushi, bad
Amazing.
sushi, amazing cheap sushi, amazing super expensive. It's all here. It's all here.
I love that. I'll have to spend more time. The last time I was in Los Angeles was 2011, and it was a passing through thing, so I didn't get to get any of the amazing sushi down there. But I'm gonna have to remember
LA
that.
is really, it's really the way to experience this city, in my opinion, is really to experience a neighborhood,
Oh,
because the way that this city is built is not the way a typical city is built, which is like a city center, and then like a sort of satellite, like neighborhoods around it. Los Angeles has a lot of centers. So all of the neighborhoods are their own small city. And it's really, really difficult to get any kind of a feel for this city if you're here for a few days and you're like traveling back and forth to like, to sightsee or to tourist destinations. The best way to see it is to find a neighborhood that you think is really cool and interesting and stay there for a week and get to know the restaurants and the nightlife and the people and the shops in that part of town. Because you cannot do, I mean, people live here for 2 years before they really have a sense of how the city is laid out and where to go, and they don't even know about this neighborhood. It's so big. You have
yeah,
to pick your section.
awesome. I will remember that. I'll pick a neighborhood. I'll get an
Yeah,
Airbnb for a week or two, and I'll
yeah,
just
yeah.
explore. You know,
That's the way to do it.
let my
That's the way to
heart
do it.
let my heart and my stomach guide me. Awesome. So, moving on a little bit, will you and when do you think it'll be when you let your kids watch Ernest Scared Stupid?
Oh, I mean, my son is 2, so no time soon.
Not anytime soon. Yep.
I'm not thinking about that yet. Um, yeah, it's not even on my radar. And I also don't care if he ever sees it, in terms of it's not that meaningful for me if he ever watches my stuff. And most of my actor friends who have kids, their kids are not interested. They're just like, turn it off. Lame.
We see you
Wait, my
every
mom is in it? Lame.
day.
Exactly. Exactly. No one's cool to their kids.
That's true. That's absolutely true. I love my mom and my dad implicitly, but yeah, they're I don't know. it's
I mean,
it's
so
cool.
that's not true. There are people who are cool to their kids. Like, I definitely did think my parents were cool as an adult.
Yeah.
As a little kid, no.
But yeah, but they're probably not going to be your fan and buy all your movies, you know.
No, and they shouldn't.
No.
That should be so boring to them because I'm there all the time and
Yeah,
totally available to them. So,
totally.
yeah.
Totally. Awesome. Awesome. So, what's on the horizon for you? What's coming up with you?
A pretty big writing project, that I've been just chipping away at for quite some time, that hopefully will, you know, I'll be able to move forward with it sometime soon. I have a short film that'll be coming out hopefully this year. A record of new music that I did with my electronica partner. Um, we have I started working with this electronic artist like 15 years ago, and we kept working together, and then like he would move away, or then I would have to leave to do a movie, or then this weird thing happened, or then that. So we could never quite finish anything. And then, we would get close to finishing something and both of our musical directions would change. Um, So we have this collection of songs that I think are going to be released soon, and they're really completely different than anything else that I do. So that'll be exciting. It'll just be a whole new world for me to release that kind of music. And so there's a lot actually. And then
Awesome.
there's another movie that I did that's coming out this year, next year, that I did with Chris Evertson. Um, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about it yet, so I won't.
Okay.
But another movie, a new record, my own short, and then another secret project.
Very cool. So much on the horizon.
Yeah, yeah.
So, how do people keep up to date with what you're doing? Where should they go to follow you?
The easiest place to follow me is Instagram. It's a picture of me. It's me. It's my name. It's just Shay Astar. Well, Shay.Astar. That's an easy place to keep up because I will post, whatever's coming out and links and everything. So that's an easy place. People also, I do have people who follow me on Facebook for the same reason. I'm just not very active on Facebook. I'm not that active on Instagram either. I mostly post a bunch of political stuff.
Kind of a season for it.
Yeah. And then, but I do keep, my social media up to date when I have stuff being released. So that's a good way. And then, yeah, that's a good way to keep in touch with me. And
Sure.
I do love to hear from people who are interested in what I'm doing. So
Awesome. And I will, for anybody listening, I will put a link to Shay's Instagram in the comment box below, in the description box below rather. So that's Shay, that's pretty much it. That's all the questions I
great.
have for you. Is there anything that you'd like to plug or talk about before we jump off?
Um, no, I think I've plugged as much as I can plug before things are actually being released.
Perfect. Awesome.
So thanks very much for the talk.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. I can't wait to get this back to you all edited and ready to go.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Really
Thank you
had a
so
great
much.
time. Appreciate it. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye bye. I have to say that Shay was an absolute blast to interview. I would love to have her back on the show. Of course, I will have links to everything that we talked about down below. If you have suggestions, comments, or just want to reach out, you can find me at Twitter at DitchingP. That's DITCHINGP on Twitter. In our next episode, we talk to former erotic actress Angel Piaf, so make sure you follow or subscribe so you don't miss that. Oh, and remember to stay gnarly, my friends.